Welcome to Sisters Conversations Podcast with your hostess, Letrise Carter. We feature interviews in literary, film, and television, as well as real topics that impact the Black community.
Welcome to Sisters Conversations with Letrise Carter and my co-host, attorney Pillara Henderson-Smith. This episode will focus on investing and how you can link that to a trust for your family. Our guest expert will be Shawn Cook from Advocate Wealth Management.
All right, before we jump into today's show on investing and how to link that to a trust, if you missed our last episode on life insurance with Juliette Marie McElwee, the replay is posted at Sisters Conversations Podcast Group and is available on Sisters Place YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and Speaker Radio.
Yes. So our special guest today, I just want to welcome to Sisters Conversations Podcast. Welcome, Shawn Cook. Hey, Shawn.
Hey, how's it going? Great
Pretty
to be here.
good. Glad to have you today to get your knowledge and your expertise.
Yes, I'm excited.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Very cool. So, hi, Shawn. Will you tell the listeners a little bit about your background before we jump into the questions?
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that. So a little bit of my background, prior to jumping into the wealth business, I actually taught finance at the university level and worked in the education system before I decided to move over into private wealth management, where I got to deal with the most intimate thing in all of our lives, which is money. So I've been, running my own business now for, the last 5 years or so, and I've been running multiple businesses, which I can get into later. But yeah, the primary one is the wealth business and how that connects to your day-to-day life and how to make your life better.
Very cool. And so how can our listeners reach you if they want to learn more information after the show?
Yeah, a great way would be to go ahead and check us out on our website, which is just advocatewm.com or via phone call at 630-474-5351.
Awesome. And don't worry, guys, we will drop all of his information inside of the podcast group, as well as on our social media pages, so that you guys can connect with him and learn more about his services. But grab your notebooks and pens and get ready to be educated and informed. So, Shawn, can you tell us about Advocate Wealth and the services offered for our listeners?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So at Advocate Wealth, we kind of focus on comprehensive financial planning, investment management, and consulting services. So I work with lots of business owners and individuals and families, and we spend a lot of time taking a look at all areas of the wealth process, from life planning, career planning, investment planning, insurance planning, estate planning, and tax planning, and how all of those things are interconnected, but oftentimes they get siloed and passed off to one person to handle without all the other pieces talking around the table. So most often I like to say my job is to kind of be like a COO at your table, where I help you direct where all those other services are going to be connected and fit hand in hand with one another.
Okay. So can you explain the difference between financial advisor and investment broker for our listeners?
Sure. I think, I was reading, when I read that question, I think a financial advisor is somebody that is going to advise you on a broad range of topics across the financial map. Like, is it better to take a loan here or to pay off this loan here? Is it better to invest with this extra savings that I have in my 401k or my IRA? So a little bit broader of a financial perspective versus an investment broker would be someone that you would be calling to broker an investment for you, to give you some recommendations on and off. So that might be more of a commissioned role for that person. I think if I could add one thing to this question, it would be, what's the difference between both of these and a fiduciary? And that's someone that gives you best interest advice and oftentimes finds themselves in a fee-based advisory role. So that's another kind of link to those topics that, you could be an advisor and not be a fiduciary. You could be an investment broker and not be a fiduciary. So that's another layer I would add to the question.
Okay, that's good. And I almost added that question with that fiduciary. I was like, nah.
Good.
So, what type of assets can you assist customers on a fixed budget who want to build a portfolio?
That's a great question. So, and this would link in again with that kind of overall perspective of how I help clients. I've helped clients, instead of invest, get out of debt, where we've spent 6 months to a year getting rid of $60,000 or $30,000 of credit card debt. I've helped customers kind of take what they were doing from an investment perspective and jump into a multi-pronged approach where they might have a trust account, a retirement account, and some 529 plans. And so normally I'm going to take a look at that individual's overall goals and objectives and come up with a risk basis, a risk goal for each of those individual accounts. And then we can kind of attack each of the assets within that. So it's a broad range. As an independent advisor who runs my own business, there really isn't an asset class that I don't utilize. So we have, individual stock portfolios, mutual fund portfolios, ETF portfolios, you name it, we got a lot of it kind of mixed in there.
Okay, that's good. That sounds good. And that leads right into my next question. If someone wants to buy a fraction of stock in a company like Nike or Apple, would they use your services or an online broker? Because I see a lot of that, like NerdWallet, eTrader, what is it? And another one, I think Fidelity, maybe.
Yeah. So I do a lot of custodian of my assets at Charles Schwab, but I have access to all of the different platforms out there that you can buy individual positions like Nike or Apple. So I help clients with that, of course. But again, from my perspective, most often the question is this in your best interest? Mm-hmm. And if it is in your best interest, is that the best thing to buy right now? So I often am on the phone having this very discussion about buying companies such as you listed above. So yeah, that's definitely something we help clients with.
Okay. Awesome. What type of fees does one incur working with a financial advisor like yourself?
That's a great question. And I think that's, for us, I'll just talk about us because I think it's different with a lot of advisor groups out there and how they decide to structure their fees. So for us, there's kind of a multi-pronged approach. Again, number one, are we doing financial planning? So when I do a financial plan, what's unique about our process is it is comprehensive. All those things I listed out earlier, from life, career, investment, insurance, estate, tax, we get into the nitty-gritty on the details and we work with their other professionals involved. So I have one-on-one conversations with the accountants and with the estate planners and with the insurance professionals to make sure we're all on the same page, which can take 40 to 80 hours of work on my side to get all of that kind of straightened out in a given year. Then there's also the investment management on the portfolio side. So those are two separate pieces. I have clients I just do investments for. I have clients that I do comprehensive financial planning for. And then I have clients I do both. And I offer a discount service for that as well. If you're working with me on both sides, you'll get a little bit of a discount for utilizing me for both services. But there's no push to have to utilize me for either one. So you're going to find a fee-based model is our preferred approach, where we'll offer, an annual fee for financial planning or an annual fee for investment management. So that it, again, is kind of predicated on how much work we're doing and how much you have to invest.
Okay. Very good.
Cool. Shawn, I just want to go back a little bit. As you were talking about the differences between investment broker and financial advisor and then a fiduciary. And I just kind of want to clarify, because all of your answers are very clear to me, but I want to make sure it's clear to the listeners that you and your company work really in that fiduciary role, that you are definitely looking at best interests.
Correct. Yes. We live in that fiduciary role as a registered investment advisor, which is that fiduciary hat that you put on. So everything we recommend is best interest, from, again, the investment side to all the planning recommendations that we end up giving out. They're all fiduciary based. And that's why we even came up with our name Advocate. We want to be an advocate for a client in a world that is bottom line focused, where, hey, how can you make me more money? How can I make more money as an owner of my own business? But we wanted to flip that question into how can we help you, maximize what you're doing for you and your family. So that's really been our goal as a company.
Okay. So when someone comes to you and they've kind of gone through the consultation sort of process of it, and they said, okay, I'd like to begin to invest. So then what does that look like? What do you recommend for them to do?
Yeah. So what the first step is kind of working through a budget to understand what they have to invest. And I think that's a step a lot of people miss out on. They hear a tip from a friend, or they're talking to somebody that says, hey, you should get into the markets. Look how great last year was. And they get excited about it. And they're paying 25% on a credit card. So you've got credit card debt that you haven't gotten out of, and you're trying to invest, and you're actually losing money month over month because you didn't first take care of your budget and the debt that you're in and all those other things. So we've gone through the consultation phase, we've got the budget set, we know what you have to invest. Then it becomes a question of how long, what's our timetable? How much risk do we want to take? How comfortable are you with watching your money go up and down? And then what type of, specific strategies do you want to employ? Are you somebody that, you want to have a tie to the companies we're investing in? So we'll help people even have like a very specific strategy according to their faith beliefs, or according to being more environmentally friendly. So we do very specific planning for us and tailor our portfolios around each individual client.
So it sounds like a very unique approach. So, and I'm sure you have these people, even though it's a very unique approach, they'll come in, they'll do the consultation, you'll tell them this is what you should do, this is going to be tailored to you. And then they say, that's all great information, but I think I can do it on my own.
Sure.
What do you say to that? Like, what's the recommendation?
Yeah, so I never deter people from trying to do it on their own. It's like me changing my own oil in my car. I could do that. Do I want to do that? No, I do not want to do that. I would rather go somewhere else. I could read all the books out there about being an attorney or a doctor, right? And I could, act as my own. I think it comes down to when your daily life gets so busy and the complications get deeper and deeper. Is that something you're going to have, number one, the time, number two, the energy, or number three, the expertise to deal with on a regular basis? And that's where someone like me comes in very handy. I'm a sounding board for all decisions. I literally work with couples all the time that before they buy something, they say, you better call Shawn, right? I know you want to buy that car. You better call Shawn and make sure it's in our budget, right? So like, you name it, I'm kind of involved in the process as a sounding board, as someone who has that expertise and the time and energy that I'm watching the markets every day to kind of give you, good direction that's appropriate for you and your situation.
So it sounds like you can do it on your own. But again, that question is, should you do it on your own? I kind of equate that to, since I'm an attorney and most people think attorneys can do everything. And I'm like, well, legally, yes. But do you really want me to do it? Probably not.
Right.
So it's one of those things. So if I'm coming to you and I'm a novice and but I don't really, I don't know much of anything. What questions should I come prepared with? Like, what should I ask you to know that you're the best person for me to work with?
Yeah, so I think questions that people should be asking themselves about managing their own stuff or working with a financial advisor, again, goes back to how comprehensive is your situation? So, when you add kids into your life, when you add multiple retirement accounts and you have, you've got an estate plan you want to worry about and your taxes get more complicated, you have a rental house, so as things get more complicated, it's something you should really ask, how involved is your advisor going to be in that process? Are they going to help you make decisions about your taxes working with your accountant? Are they going to help you with your business attorney on what you should be doing from a business process to maximize your profit as a business? Are they going to help? So you should be asking very, very specific questions according to your situation and how that advisor is going to help you with that specific situation. So again, if you're someone that's a novice, let me just create a scenario if that works.
Yeah.
You're married, you just had your first kid, you're out of debt, you're saying like, hey, we're kind of in a good situation. I want to get involved investing and growing my money so I don't have to work for the rest of my life. What should we do? Right? The question you should be asking is what are we missing from a financial perspective? Here's what we have in place. Your financial advisor should be able to give advice on all the different things that I just laid out. Number two, what are the costs associated with? How much time is invested from your advisor on fixing or working through the issues that you need to work through? So again, all the things I work through, most advisors aren't going to spend a lot of time in the tax world or the estate planning world or the insurance world. They're going to just focus on your investments. And that's a key portion of it. But disassociated with those other areas, I think you're getting very siloed advice. So you want to make sure that you're getting comprehensive advice, in my opinion, unless you are a comprehensive planner yourself and you're just hiring someone to do the investing. So in that case, what is the philosophy of the investment advisor? How do they break down their fees? What is the internal cost of the portfolio? How often are you going to get a review? Those are some of the questions that I would be asking.
Okay, so it sort of sounds like look at your end goal and work your way back. So this is what I'm trying to accomplish, and whether or not this person is going to be able to attack and address each of these areas. And if not, then maybe that's not the correct person.
Correct. And I would add one thing to that, and I would just say, I've worked with a lot of individuals that have had multiple financial advisors, right? Like I've got clients that they come to me and they're like, I currently have 2 or 3 financial advisors. I like my stuff split up. I feel better that way, that I'm diversified even in my financial advisors. And I think when you go into the comprehensive conversation that I'm talking about, they find that all of them have been missing something because they're all doing their own siloed approach. So I think that's the more unique thing on my end is again, that bringing all the information together to have more of a, what is the wisest thing for me to do? Not what is, a best interest for that person or that other person, but for me, with all the information that I have, what's going to be the best approach that we can have?
Okay. Very good. Great information. Thank you so much for that. So this might be out of your wheelhouse, but as you're talking, it just kind of makes me think about this. I know today, a lot of times when people think about investing in stocks and things, the buzzwords are sort of the day trading and that type of thing. And so people are gravitating towards that. What are your thoughts on that? Because clearly I would say that's apples and oranges to what you do. But I know a lot of people, when they hear investments, they're going to automatically kind of go to that day trading aspect.
Yeah. So again, day trading is a little bit different than investing. So that's more of a speculative option, right? So someone that's speculating, you're looking for a short-term return on your investment. You're not going to hold that for 12 months. I think that's something more people don't understand. So I'll give you an example. I have a client that I work with. I'm handling a portion, they're handling a portion. They've been day trading, and they said, hey, I'm going to have a X amount of bill for my taxes this year that I wasn't expecting because of day trading. And I say, yes, well, that's the tax ramifications of short-term investing and speculating the way that you're doing. So if you hold that investment for a longer time period, if you're actually investing in something, you're going to become an owner of a company because you're interested in the long-term goals. You're going to treat that investment differently. Right. So I think there's kind of you're right, apples and oranges on the approach. I help clients with both. I do a lot less speculating. So it's more rare for me to do speculating. But like I said earlier on, we do have stock portfolios that we manage. So there is some more active trading that happens in those portfolios, but it's not as active as I think the common person would think, where in a given day, I'm going to buy something and sell something. That is not what we're doing on our end.
Right. So I think a lot of times people do sort of think of that and don't really understand the difference between what it is that you would do and being able to do the day trading, which is why I wanted to sort of address that a little bit. And then another one that's kind of trendy right now that I want to just sort of touch on as well, and I'm sure you could probably guess this, is the cryptocurrency, right?
Yes.
And so that's a big thing. And so people are going to see investment on the podcast and or they hear investment. And so they automatically kind of go to this cryptocurrency, be it Bitcoin or any other type of thing. And so just whatever you want to share on cryptocurrency.
Cryptos are a very interesting space. So, I think one of the things people don't realize is our government doesn't even know how to label that right now. So the SEC has it listed as one thing. FINRA, which is another regulatory body for my world, has it listed as a different thing. So everyone has it listed as, is it a property? Is it an investment? Is it a commodity? People don't even know how to categorize it right now. So I would say that is on the far speculative side of the quote unquote investment world. You can buy and sell that on different platforms that are out there right now. I don't deal with cryptos or give recommendations on that. I leave that for people to play with on their own. So when it comes to clients asking me about cryptocurrency and what they should or should not do, my answer is generally, treat it like you're going to the casino. And, if you want to play around with it, use your play money to do that. So I would not use your long-term investment, strategy. I would not center that around cryptocurrency. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the long-term outlook of crypto. How involved are the governments across the world right now in cryptocurrency? Is their current involvement the same as it will be over the next 10 years?
Right.
No. So is the current iteration the final iteration that we're going to know? Are these long-term strategies or short-term strategies? So those are all the questions that I ask when looking at cryptocurrency and just kind of deciding, is this something that a client should be putting their hard-earned hours of life towards? And the answer is not, I don't give a yes or no. I say, just treat this a lot more, even more speculative than buying and selling stocks at this point, because the backing is not ownership in a company. It's not a true commodity that you can buy most things with. It's not a true, it's not cash. It's not. So it is kind of this weird, it's got this weird place in our current economy. And I find it very intriguing and very interesting, but I stay away from giving advice on it at this point.
Okay. I'm with you on that one. I find it very intriguing right now as well. And in the estate planning world, that's something we're kind of grappling with as well, right? So how do you pass along that cryptocurrency and making sure that we put it in there as, right now, and I'm just sort of labeling it under that tangible personal property type of thing, or it is your property, but you have to have that key in order to make it work. And so, hoping the person pass along that key.
You're right. And that's the thing. It's not like a lot of other assets that are in a certain titled, organization that you can find as easily. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting world. And from your perspective in the estate planning world, how often are you running into this right now? Is it fairly often?
Not as often as I would have thought, but I think it's one of those things that's definitely going to start to come more prevalent. And so if you attend most CLEs right now, so that's most of the continuing legal education things, you're starting to get that little trickle of make sure that you're thinking about this, make sure you bring this up to clients, because that's just one of the things that in the past, I didn't even ask a client, do you even have it? You're hoping that they put that in the other box.
Right.
But now that is one of those things that I have to definitely ask, do you have it? What type do you have? Where is the key? Who knows how to get the key? Making sure that, executors or trustee or however it is that we're setting up, that it's accessible. Because if that's not accessible, it doesn't exist basically.
Right.
Letrise, do you have any more questions for Shawn? He's given us such a wealth of information today.
Oh my God, you have. And thank you for that excerpt about that crypto, because I have a few people who, constantly trying to get me to do it. And I'm like,
Again, no recommendation one way or the other over here. More than anything else, treat it like the speculative options that it is. So yes.
Okay. No, I don't have any more, any other questions. You finished your questions, Pillara?
I have, so Shawn, what would you want a takeaway to be? So what would you want that final takeaway to be, and for somebody to pick up the phone and call you an advocate?
Yeah, so I'll give two takeaways. One, for just someone trying to do this on their own, the most important thing you can do for long-term financial planning is understand that that spending less than you make is the most important vehicle you have, and investing the remaining amount of money. Number two is understanding everything you own. And I think most people don't, from even their work benefits to their insurance, to all the different vehicles that you have working for you right now. At one time you signed up for it and you really don't know what you have. So I would say getting into the details of your own financial plan are important. And then working with me, the one tidbit I'd leave you with is, if you're looking for someone, again, that it has this wide range of knowledge and is going to be very detailed around you and your specific life needs and goals, then I would be a great person for you to reach out to and at least find out if I'm a fit. because we spend a lot of time changing lives in this business, which is why I got into it. Less about, again, running a business for running a business sake, and more about how can we improve the lives of everyone around us.
You know what? That is great. I do have another question as you were talking. So I know earlier you mentioned you help some clients get out of debt. Does that include student loan debt?
It does. It does very often. Very often. Because the question becomes, so what happens most often is people come in, they've got a little bit of credit card debt, they got a little bit of student loan debt, they got a home or a mortgage. And so we're starting with this big deficit. All right. So we don't have a positive net worth. We're coming in with a negative net worth and saying, all right, I want to invest, but where do I go? How do I attack this first? And so looking at rates, looking at the piles and how to pay things down and how to go through that whole process, that's definitely a large portion of the wealth plan, because you can't have a positive net worth without getting rid of all that stuff at first. So that's a huge part of some of the planning process that we go through, depending on where you're at in that process, right? Because we have clients across the asset map, whether you're, $20 million client or all the way down to we're just looking to open an account and start funding at $100 a week. I've got clients kind of everywhere in between, because we, again, center our practice around each individual client we run into.
Okay. Because I'm thinking about my student loan debt.
Yeah.
I have a plan in my head. I'm like, pay this off, because I don't think the president's going to write it off.
He might, but I doubt it, right? He might. You never know.
Maybe not. Shawn, do you do any type of educational type classes? Since you were talking about the budget and figuring that out, do you do anything like that people can tap into, or any resources out there that would help with some of that?
Yeah, so I've done different seminars for businesses. Actually, I go in and do business presentations quite often, church presentations where I go and do kind of we've set up a system to go in and do like basic training on the things I'm talking about for people that are looking to get out of debt. People are looking to start investing. People are more looking at the long-term wealth building. So I have done events like that. I don't have anything posted online at this point for people to go and check out on their own. The best way would be to reach out one-on-one. I'm very personable. I'm very nice. I'm not gonna bite anyone. So it'd be a great conversation either way.
Thank you.
Okay. And I got another question, because he keeps bringing it in. I just lost it. Oh my God. Okay, I'll have to drop it on your page or something. It like literally left me, just it's gone.
Yeah.
I wanted to. Oh no, it's back. Okay, so a person has to pay off their debt first before they can invest.
They don't have to.
What if they have money to invest? Should they not purchase any stock and put that extra money toward paying off their student loans?
It depends. So if you follow some of the models that are out there, so a lot of people have heard of Dave Ramsey and his model, which is pay off all debt except your mortgage before you invest. I'm not in that camp where I think it's a hard rule. I think it's very dependent on your situation and what rates are you paying for things? What does your overall debt, how consistent is your income? So there's a lot that goes into that. It doesn't mean don't start investing. Or contributing to your work 401k or your 403b at work. Again, if you're getting matched at work, you literally get like 100% return on those dollars that are getting matched. So it all depends on each individual situation. There's not a hard and fast rule. But as far as like paying off your debt, you definitely want to start with either the highest rate of what it's costing you, and or the smallest bucket, so you can snowball your debt. That part is pretty consistent when it comes to student loans or credit card or any type of debt that we're trying to work through.
Okay. I'm gonna have to give you a call so we can talk. I need to pay off I have my student loan debt. I paid off my credit card, so I'm good.
Yeah. So normally what I'll do is we'll come up with a strategy on we'll literally have an order of how we're going to pay them down, how quickly. Again, reviewing the budget according to what matters to you. And I think that's something a lot of people don't do. Your lifestyle kind of gets chosen for you without paying attention. And all of a sudden you look at when we go through your budget and you're like, wait a minute, I've been spending how much money on food and shopping at Amazon? Oh man, that's not what
Amazon got so much money.
That's right. That's not what I actually care about. So reorienting your budget so that you can do that faster and get to the things that really do matter to you later on. that's kind of a part of the process we go through.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. This has been very informative.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Pillara, do you have any additional questions for Shawn, or you're?
I don't have any more questions for you. I mean, well, I could, but we probably shouldn't. So we'll have to have Shawn back on again.
Yes, for sure. But this was great. Especially, I think we should have him back on for paying off debt, because that seems to be a really big problem in not just our community, in every community. Teaching them how to tackle debt, how you should get started, So I'll shoot you an email so we can set up something for next month. Maybe talk about debt.
I'd be glad to do it.
Awesome. Well, we thank you for taking time to join our show today and talk about wealth and your services. Why don't you leave your information again for our readers and listeners? Well, I say readers because they're going to read a blog about this as well. So can you kind of leave your information again for our listeners?
Yeah, so you can reach us on our website, www.advocatewm.com, or you can call our office at 630-474-5351.
Awesome.
Thank you, Shawn.
And thank you again. Thank you, Shawn. Thanks
so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Awesome. All right, Pillara. So with that being said, so how does one link their financial advisory in any type of investments that they get going through a financial advisor to a trust?
So it's sort of like Shawn was talking about, we talk to each other, right? And so that's the key here. So you want to make sure that whoever you do have doing your financial advising and your estate planner, that they are able to have conversations with each other so that everything really coincides with each other, because you don't want to set up something that is not consistent with something else. So you want to make sure you have that consistency. As far as linking, that's what we call funding, right? Okay. And so you want to look at and see, is this something that you want the trust to own, or even can the trust own it? There are some accounts and things that a trust can't own, that only a person can own it, but a trust can be the beneficiary of it, right? And so this is when we're looking at funding the trust. Not everything, you may not even want everything to go into the trust. There are some accounts that just make more sense to just give it directly. If you think about accounts that once they go into when the money goes in, it goes in not tax deferred, meaning that you'll have to pay income taxes on the back end of it. So if you are someone who has a generous heart, right, and you plan to make a gift maybe to a charitable organization that has exemption status, it makes much more sense for you to name that organization as the beneficiary of that account than it would for you to put that money into a trust. Putting that money into the trust will have to pay income taxes on that. If you give it directly to that organization, it maximizes that gift, right? And they don't have to pay taxes on it. So they get the entire gift. So you just really want to look at what are the different accounts, and should it be titled? Should it be listed as a beneficiary? And is that the best way? And really the only way to do that is if you are going through each different asset and then able to have a conversation. Like, what's the goal for this money? Is this money something that you're leaving behind to take care of your family and your kids? Or is this just an extra step up? Or is this something that you are gifting, like I said, to an organization? That's all going to make a difference on how it plays into a trust.
Okay. And I know before, I think probably a couple episodes ago, we had talked about how some people go out and they create a trust and it's just a piece of paper because there's nothing set up. And now going through this step, when you go and sit with a financial advisor and they set up your investments, whether it's mutual funds, IRAs, or what have you, now that, depending on what it is, can be linked. I mean, can be put as a part of that trust. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It does.
And I would say it should be. Should be. Oftentimes it doesn't happen that way, which I'm sure Laura knows, where the advisor is supposed to put it in a trust and it stays in an individual account or a joint account or something that it wasn't intended to be in.
Yeah. So that's that follow-up, right? You always have to make sure you do the follow-up and the follow-through. And when you get those statements, those monthly statements or your quarterly review, those are the things that you should be reviewing. How is this title? Who is the beneficiary? Those are really, really important things to look at. But Letrise, you're right. A trust basically is a piece of paper. If you do not do the next steps, you have a worthless piece of paper, and at your death, it still goes through the normal process that the state, wherever you reside, has set up for people who don't do what they're supposed to do beforehand, right? Or for those, maybe I should say, that just don't get around to it. So it's just a piece of paper. And so it's really important that you do the funding portion of it. And so that means, do titles need to be changed? So should this asset be put into the title of the trust, meaning the trust owns it, or looking at those beneficiaries? And so the beneficiaries are really important. Beneficiaries, payable on death, transfer on death, it's all the same thing. Depending on what the type of asset it is, it could have a little different title to it, but it's basically the same thing. It's where do you want it to go? So like I said, it could be an individual, it could be an organization, or it could be the trust.
Okay. And it's funny that, this all brings me back. So I work for a fund administration. I'm a director, and I manage, we manage various funds, and just seeing this, how will either someone get a divorce or there'll be a death, and they have to transfer from a custodial account to a trust account. And I actually do these transfers. And I hate them because of the work from the accounting perspective side of it, and I actually do these transfers. And it's so funny that we're talking about this today, and it's like red flags is going off. Yeah, that's what you do. And we generate we call them PCAPs, but it's investor statements every quarter, that where we have some investors, they don't even look at their statements.
So what advice would you give on that? Because you're on other side of where, from Shawn and myself. So you are the person that you're receiving.
I'm on the accounting side. I'm keeping the books. We're booking all the operational expenses of the fund. Whatever fund that you're invested in, we literally do all the accounting for that fund. Mm-hmm. And those fees and charges and the net operating expenses get reallocated back to the investors based on their pro rata share or time weighted average. There's all different types of formulas that we use. And I hate time weighted average, by the way. I like straight pro rata, just straight pro rata shares, how much you invested in this based off of the total fund. But it gets, funky. But being from the accounting side of it, I get to see a whole nother side of it. And I get annoyed with, we've had some investors where the beneficiary, he passed, or the person who started the trust, he passed. And his stuff stayed in rebate for 1, 2, 3 years. Or not rebate, probate. Rebate. We wish. Yeah. So I'm this just, having talking with you guys, this is like ding, 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 ding. This is what you do during the day in corporate America. So
that's very interesting. So if that means if that particular client asset stayed in probate, then they definitely did not have a trust. And so that meant that was an outright investment that they had made that was in their name. It was in their name, and then it transfers. Once it goes through the whole probate process, we get an executive transfer document to transfer it to an actual trust. Right. So then that's something that's happening on the back end. But part of that probably could have been avoided as well if that person had an actual listed beneficiary. So it sounds like they did not have a listed beneficiary. And so therefore it went through their estate. And then because it went through the estate, then that's why it went through the probate process, which is like a a snowball effect.
Yeah.
So if you come and talk to me first, or come and talk to Shawn first,
yes, they would have avoided that. Yeah.
yeah.
And the funny thing is, we can't, from my side, we can't generate any transfers or process that transfer until that executed document is signed and done, and until it's out of probate. Like, we do nothing with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's backdated. So we have to roll it back. Say an investor passed a year ago, whatever that effective date of that transfer, we have to roll our accounting period back for that fund and process that that transfer, and literally send a new investor statement to the new owners, the trust or whoever.
So are you looking at the date of death, or are you looking at the date probate?
It's the date. It is the effective date that the general partner signed and approved it after it goes to probate.
Oh gosh, so that's after certification.
So each fund has a GP, and that GP has to approve that transfer as well.
Very interesting.
They can either buy them out, or they can allow them to transfer it to a trust or something. Yeah. Or another whole person.
Very interesting. So that's a side of it that I never get to see. So it's really interesting to learn that, how that process works on your end.
Yes. It's very, very time consuming. So my hat's off to you all. I mean, because we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. I'm definitely one of those people that says as soon as you have kids, you should have a trust, or at least an intertestamentary trust, which Pillara could talk about. But I'm definitely one of those people that says, depending on, you should have a trust or one that's ready to be made inside of your will at a minimum, no matter where you're at in the wealth spectrum, to protect your kids. I mean, if you have life insurance, you need to have a trust. If you have, anything of value, it's kind of, in my opinion, the right way to go to protect your kids as a parent.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely.
And Pillara, you've pretty much touched base on what I needed for a trust, and Shawn chimed in. You said intermediary. Is it intermediary trust?
A testamentary.
What's that?
Intestamentary.
That's the same thing we talked about before.
So that's creating a trust in your will. So that's a little bit different. I think we talked about revocable trust, and I think we probably talked about the different types. So a testamentary trust is a trust that's created as part of your will. So in the will document, you would state that the funds, the assets, the gift that you're giving is to create the trust, and the trust is created for usually your kids or for disabled adult children. And so then within that document, you stipulate everything that you would want, to happen. So when they should receive it, how they should receive it, all the different parameters and rules and that, but it's not actually created until your death. And so it's a really great tool for people who are like, I don't need to create a trust now. I just don't have the assets. It doesn't make any sense. Like, we don't own real property. We don't have, thousands of dollars in the bank, but we do have this really big insurance policy.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and we want this insurance policy to take care of our family if something happens to us. But what we don't want is for our minor children to get this big insurance policy
and just
100%. Yep.
Right? Because once they're minors, they can't take it. And so it goes into this custodial account. And then once they do become of age, depending on what state you're in, that could be 18 or 21. Do you really want your 21-year-old or your 18-year-old to suddenly become a millionaire or $500,000 or even $100,000? Probably not.
I have a friend, her daughter, when her mom passed, she left her a lot of money, and she was only 23, and she has been spending that money ever since. And it's a lot of money. And the sad part is she hasn't bought. I'm like, you could have bought she could pay cash for a house. She could have there's a lot of things that she could do with it that she's not doing with it. And I don't have a say so. I want to just wring her little neck because if I see another Instagram post, just throwing money, just And I'm like, oh my God, her mother left her a lot. Her mother set her for life to the point where she set up her grandkids, and she's just blowing through this money.
And so that's the point. So your friend had something in mind, very intentional in mind. It was to take care of her child, but it was also to leave a legacy, hopefully for the grandchildren, and then maybe
the grandchildren's grandchildren.
So this is
it was a lot of money
wealth that she planned, which is great, having the policy, but she needed to go a step further, right? And the step further is setting up the trust, because with the trust, then you can lay down those rules and you can say, this money is here to take care of your everyday needs, your education, to maintain your quality of life until you are, say, 21. At 21, now I think maybe you're a little bit more responsible. Now there's money to pay for college, maybe to pay for grad school, maybe a down payment on a home. But what I'm not going to do is just give it all to you. I'm giving you portions of it. You're 25. I think now you're even more responsible. Maybe at this point, you can have a third of the principal, and you can have all the income that's being generated from the trust. But you still have money that's there, that's still building, that's still growing, right? And so then you can decide, does that child receive any more, or does that money just sit there and continue to grow? And then when you have your grandchildren, then this goes to the grandchildren. Or, you put in there, it goes to you, my child, but if something happens to you, my child, then it goes to your children. If something happens to those children, then it goes to the next generation. So there's lots of different ways that you can set that up, and then it would actually reach the goal that was
originally set.
Intended, as opposed to this is just a make it rain day of money, and let's see how fast I can blow through, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then
not hundreds, millions.
So.
Yeah. And what I would say is, I'm pretty sure, Pillara, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a couple of years ago, the stat was like 90% of estates are spent within 1 year.
Yes.
Some crazy statistic like that, where you die, you pay life insurance, retirement money, houses, cars, gone in 1 year. It's all out of there. So like what we're talking about is a strategic plan to make sure that doesn't happen to your family, that your money lasts, that you help your kids, that you leave a legacy behind, but you extend that legacy into their 30s or 40s and into their marriages and their life later on when they're out of their 20s, which, I don't know how many 20-year-olds or 18-year-olds, like Pillara was saying, are ready for any type of sum of money, 30,000, 50,000, whatever that number is. And, that's a question.
What I would have did, I would have gave her some at 21, gave her some at 25, gave her some at 30, a little bit at 35, kind of would have spread it out, because she left her this astronomical amount of money, and it's just too much for someone that age. Right. And then, you find you get a lot of new friends, and
it's taking advantage.
Yeah. I may just kind of inbox her your number, Shawn.
Yeah, go for it. And that's the education piece, and I've, I spend a lot of different time in different communities trying to educate as much as I can, because there are secrets to passing wealth on that are skipping different groups of people, right? And I think that is a huge part of educating the next generation, so that's not happening. Right, where everybody has access to this. It's not like these secrets are that secret. It's just you have to have someone teach it to you so you know it, and then you can pass that on to the next person you know.
No, I'm so glad that you said that, because I would, definitely say, since you've said that the secrets in certain communities that it seems to have skipped, and it is because exactly of what you said. This is a thing that's usually taught within a household, right? And so if my parents and their parents have been able to teach them about generational wealth and how to pass things and how to build it on, then that's more likely to come to me. But if that's not something that's been available for whatever reason, right? And so specifically for like the Black community, when you're basically just kind of scraping from one day to the next day, because there are systematic and institutional things that have kind of prevented you from having some of those things that are sort of just taken for granted, that have allowed other communities to be able to build that generational wealth, this is one of those things when you just don't know what you don't know. And so you might make a different choice or different decision if you had some different information, but somebody has to have that information first in order to teach it to you, in order to pass it down. And so this is definitely where these collaborations and conversations like we're having today, that can open up those doors, right? And can make a definite difference for current generation as well as the next generation. And so like you said, it's not secret in the hush, hush, don't tell anybody, but it is secret in that if you don't know, you don't even know what to ask to know.
Right.
You've heard these things. And
no one ever taught you about how it works or how to maximize it. And I think the other part of it that I have found is if you've never been taught about money or wealth or kind of what it takes to earn it, what it takes to keep it, and you weren't given a responsibility associated with receiving something on the back end, then you don't have any respect for it necessarily either. And so what I have found is like some of the best things I've seen clients do have been like, for example, I've got a client paid for his kids' college, but the kids, as soon as they got out, had to pay him back the loan money every year. Oh. And even though it was already paid for. And every year, once the year was done, he took that money and put it into their retirement account.
That's really cool.
So even though college was taken care of, it was like this reciprocal, I'll pay, you're going to pay me back every month like it was a college loan. And every month, I'm going to put that right back into your retirement. So you are investing in your future with this.
Yeah, that compounded interest. Okay, so if I've paid $30,000 for college, and now over the next 10 years, I pay you back this $30,000, but it's going into this account that's building and earning. And we all know the earlier you start with these investments, because of compound interest, where you can land yourself, that's huge. That is huge.
Yep, and that's the whole idea, right? Is to figure out ways to teach at the same because again, kids don't always want to listen to their parents. So you got to teach in different ways while they're aging till the friendship starts to build with your parents. So there is this, gap of no matter what your parents are saying, you're not listening to, wow, look at what my parents have built. Look how hard it's been for me. Now I have respect. Teach me your ways. Yeah. So that you got to find creative ways like that to bridge that gap between listening and not listening.
I
like that. Awesome. Well, this was really good today. Thank you so much, Shawn. Pillara, as always, I love you to death. A wealth of knowledge here that we are passing on to our listeners. And if you guys have questions, drop your comments in the comment section. Drop your questions in the comment section. Any one of us will respond. I will drop the link to Shawn's website, his Instagram page. I'm going to follow you on Instagram as well. I found you.
Yep, we're on there. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, we're on there.
Yes. I'll drop that information in the group so you guys can learn more. And let's educate ourselves. Wealth building, legacy, informing. And next month, we're going to talk about debt. We're going to bring Shawn back and we're going to talk about debt. So make sure you guys get ready for that. Pillara, hey, as always.
Thanks to our special guests for joining the show today. Be sure to follow us on your favorite streaming channel so you don't miss a show. We can be heard on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and YouTube at Sista's Place. Visit our website, www.sistasplace.com, to learn more about us.